and let me work it, flip it, and reverse it. I am Erin Morrow, the UTO events coordinator, who has spent countless hours pivoting my event knowledge to make your online events memorable and successful. I am joined today by Christina and Samantha Becker.
Hi everyone, I'm Christina. I am a University Innovation Fellow within the Office of Applied Innovation. When we transitioned to work from home, I worked with a team of folks to move the conference in 8 days from in-person to completely online. So thanks to Erin and Samantha for letting me join you in this presentation.
More like begging you to join us after what you pulled off with the Social Embeddedness Conference. It was amazing. My name is Samantha Becker. I'm the Executive Director for Creative and Communications at UTO. And what that means is we do a ton of strategic communications, storytelling, and community engagement. I've been remote most of my career, and I've seen pretty much all the online events platforms come and go. So I've been working on content strategy and online events in some form for the past, I guess, nearly a decade now. Erin, what are we going to get into here today? What kind of trouble?
All right, today we will take you through our 10 best practices for a successful online event, break out into smaller groups, and answer your online event questions. Online events should be more than just meeting virtually. They should be a digital immersion event. A digital immersion event is an online collaboration which brings the community together with compelling content in an interactive environment.
We are about to share some tips of our own, our collective tips between Christina, Erin, and myself to get you kind of, if you're thinking about moving your event online, or if you've got an event coming up, you're wondering, where do I even begin? One of the most common mistakes we see is people focusing on the technology platform, but actually it's really important to ensure that the medium fits the message. So what do we mean by that? The very first step as the event organizer that you're going to want to do is figure out and work with your stakeholders to figure out what your desired outcomes are. And it doesn't have to be anything super detailed. Just figure out, is it consensus that you want to build? Do you want to create an opportunity for people to showcase their work? Do you want to teach something? And then each desired outcome really has some corresponding considerations. So these are sort of the tough questions to ask yourself at the very beginning. What level of interaction do you want? Is it going to be more Q&A in a plenary style? Or do you want deeper dives in more dedicated rooms and spaces? Will your event work better as a lecture or panel versus more of a roundtable or workshop or a design charrette? And then finally, as the event organizer, when you have all your attendees in the room, all in the virtual room all together, what are you looking for to advance your project, your initiative, whatever it is? And then as the organizer, you can think then about what your strategies are for collecting or building that artifact during the meeting. Is it a Google Doc, a Padlet, a Trello, something else?
Well, there are 3 main formats that are available for online events. Meetings, which are highly focused on interactivity. Here you'll be able to see everyone's face in a gallery, like today, and be able to break into breakout sessions, like today, for smaller collaboration groups. The webinar format is also a great format for larger groups. You're able to get a large amount of information to a select group and still offer the ability to connect with your attendees through chat or polling. And then there's live streaming, which is an ideal way to distribute information to the masses. Here you'll be able to create a presentation that can be available for anyone to consume at any time.
I mentioned about asking the tough questions early. And so throughout this presentation, we'll also be sharing some additional resources for you to get into after the event. But our remote modality has made all meetings happen online in some form. And there's already research that's out that kind of shows the difference between how people get drained from online meetings versus face-to-face interactions. And so here's a practical guide. Do we need a meeting for this? That sort of describes different meeting types and kind of helps you make some decisions around how to structure your meetings. You can get that document at the link below.
means you get the opportunity to reimagine what your event is going to look like, what it sounds like, what it feels like, and even what it tastes like. I had the opportunity to participate in a design session where the organizers sent snacks for us to enjoy, and an accompanying handbook ahead of time for us to use. So yeah, thank you. And so with that, these are just different things to think about and questions to ask yourself as you're planning your events. So what time makes sense for your attendees? Is it something that you can spread across multiple days? So GSV was every single Wednesday in the month of April. What does feedback look like and how are you going to collect it? So is it going to be, you know, looking at the chat, or is it going to be like a post-event survey? Are you looking for like nonverbal feedback as well? Sam mentioned this, so how will people collaborate? Are they going to be in a Google Doc working together? Are you sending that Google Doc out ahead of time so people have access to it? Thinking about how you can increase access as well. So for the Social Embeddedness Conference, we didn't live stream, we were planning to live stream the keynote session, but instead we ended up recording it so that people could watch it after the event. And then also thinking about how you're going to make it interactive. So there are multiple platforms that you can use for like digital Post-it notes. So there's Lucidchart. Something that I really enjoy using is Mural, which right now has a 90-day free membership, given the fact that we're in a pandemic. And it's a really nice platform because you have all of these different Post-it notes. You can vote. Everybody can access it. You can have anonymous links. You can have just folks specifically as part of your team.
All right, let's make it interactive. Online can seem bland, but we have come up with a couple ways to make it fun for everybody. First, have you seen a graphic facilitator? These guys are amazing. I just have to start there because it's pretty cool. So this is a picture from last year's Empower, and it just captures the entire day in such a way that never can be captured again. But the best part is that these talented folks can live draw your images and text to extract ideas for your attendees and speakers to create a one-of-a-kind artifact while an online event. We were able to see this at the ShapingEDU conference recently. Other ways to get people involved is to use breakout groups. By breaking your attendees into smaller groups, you can ignite deeper conversation and collaboration. Next. Virtual backgrounds are not only fun because they personalize your event, as you can tell, I have mine. They also help you identify who the key presenters are. Other fun ways to get people involved are virtual block parties. About a week or so, if you recall, we had a block party on the Empower ASU channel, Slack channel. And we used it to get everyone excited about today and start fun conversations among attendees. One thing we ended up asking about was your music. We wanted to make sure to bring this fun element into our event. One of the worst parts of joining an online event is that awkward, weird silence when you first are waiting for the speaker to begin, which is why we suggest the music. This jumps the event off to a fun, upbeat start, and when the music stops, everyone knows that someone's going to start talking.
And what are some fun things in the chat? Just to kind of get a quick sense, what are some fun things that have worked for you in events that have made the event memorable for you? Type some of your responses and most memorable experiences in the chat.
Yes, I'd love to hear those. Yeah,
so this is just a really quick tip. Flip your event. As you saw from the title of our event, you might be wondering, is she really going to get to some of the Missy Elliott stuff or not? So how do you actually flip your event? There's a pedagogical practice called the flipped classroom that's proven effective for teaching and learning for many years. It actually originated in K-12. And the whole premise is that educators send out materials, whether they be view-aheads or read-aheads, ahead of class, so that class time can be devoted to something super active, discussion-oriented, and deeper. So it's all about taking the passive experiences and making sure that they could happen asynchronously and on participants' own time. They could read some context, they can do something. so that by the time that they get to your event, you're able to not have to worry so much about setting context. Participants have already come in, maybe feeling connected to the subject, feeling more invested, and you've brought out some really important context, and it saves you some time.
So,
What more can we say about being flexible, Christina?
so keep saying it over and over and over again, but it's not the exact same as being in person when you're on a virtual platform. And so again, you get to reimagine what success looks like and then also how you're going to measure it. And so it's got to be more than attendance. I think Lev said it at the beginning when he was kicking off the event, like we had, is it 800 people that registered for Empower? And we had around like 567, 576 listening to President Crow's keynote. It doesn't mean that your event is not successful if you're just thinking about attendance, or if you're just focusing on attendance, then it makes it seem like your event is not as successful. However, there are other things that you can ask or think about when it comes to your metrics. So maybe it's the number of registrations, which is actually what we cared about for the social embeddedness conference. The number of attendees or participants, so just attendance in general, the types of registrations or attendees. And so for the social embeddedness conference, it was open to community members. And so we were really focused on not just our ASU staff and faculty, but how many community partners were actually participating or registered for the event, the types of sessions that get the most registrations, which sessions have the most attendees in them. And so during the conference, I would bounce around between different sessions and just kind of estimate how many people were in each session. I'm hoping that someone at UTO can invent a way to calculate how long someone is in a session, because the benefits of being in a virtual event are that you can bounce around. But I would imagine, like, if you're spending 30 or 40 minutes in this session and then jumping to another one for 10 minutes, you're going to miss a lot of that information. But thinking about how long you decide to spend in those sessions kind of says how excited or engaged that you were. So hopefully you're not leaving the session for another one. And then also just thinking about like social media engagement, or even just like on the Slack that we're all a part of. So are people having conversations? Are people chatting right now in our Zoom chat? And then also thinking about what happens as a result of your event. So are people building new connections? Are they starting new programs or initiatives? So really, yes, we care about how many people are attending the event, but you can't just focus on that one number.
Fun fact, Christina, I think Zoom has that data to tell me how long everyone stays. I haven't played with it much, but I believe it's there.
Oh,
We have the technology.
But thank you. Also, key fact is feedback. It's crucial regardless the type of event you have, online, in person. You need to know if you're doing it right. So take the time, ask for suggestions and praises through polls, surveys, whatever it takes. But the biggest part is you have to read the results. You have to take the time, know what they're saying, figure out what is right and wrong. And yeah, some of it will be skewed for this or that, and things are not going to look wonderful. You're not going to get 800 people to tell you that today was magnificent. That's okay. Celebrate the few who did say it and accept the bumps and figure out a way to make it better next time.
So your facilitators play a huge role in your events. So big shout out to Seth, who is our facilitator right now. They are culture builders, they're event managers, they're chat monitors. They are guides for the journey that your participants are going on. And so it's important that you prep them ahead of time to host, to guide, and to facilitate prior to your events. And then also take time to check in with them during the event to see if they need anything. And then follow up with them afterward. So we just saw Christine hop into this session. I know that she is checking around and making sure that all of the sessions are going well to make sure that people have everything that they need. And so it's really important also that you onboard your facilitators, because they are the ones who are building all of this culture, facilitating everything while you are just ensuring that everything goes smoothly. So here are just a few examples and templates that I created modeled after the templates that Sam and Erin had for ShapingEDU. And so there's a link at the bottom for you to use if you need it. And the only thing that we ask is that if you end up using these resources, as you improve them, if you will share them with us and then share them with other people, because this is just a learning experience for all of us. There are scripts, there are slide decks, there's a Google Sheet with like all of the information from the Social Embeddedness Conference, hour by hour. And yeah, you're welcome to use it, improve it, critique it.
Hey, thank you so much, Christina. What a wonderful resource. And I love that community members are building on each other's work. I think that's part of what makes ASU so innovative and part of our special sauce. So also as an ingredient in the sauce is our own Partner to Protect Facilitator Toolkit. UTO actually hosts a lot of unconferences, which sound really loose and flexible, which they are, but it actually requires a lot of structure on the back end to same page people around what it takes to create a flexible environment where participants could have a great agency. And so here's a link to our own toolkit, publicly available. Christina referenced some of these resources that we've already shared. In this toolkit, and in a toolkit that you may think about building for your presenters and facilitators, are questions and activities to keep it moving, because we know sometimes people are just terrified of silence or the blank page. So how can you empower your facilitators to keep conversations flowing when they get stuck? Well, we've created a broad set of questions that can apply to numerous situations. You can be thinking of your own to pass on to facilitators. In our toolkit is a facilitator version of an agenda, which just is a really souped up agenda that has specific notes that facilitators need to know about, but participants don't, because we want to keep things simple for them. An actionable outputs menu. So kind of back to this discussion of what are we actually trying to produce? What are our desired outcomes? What artifacts are we building? Again, sometimes you just don't know where to begin or don't know what to create. So there's a menu of ideas for things that could be created or could come out of your event. So there's a menu there. It's kind of an artisanal menu. It's got a few custom choices as well as create your own. Then we have our training slide deck. So we actually host live training sessions and we record them because not everyone can make them. And we provide our deck and recording post-training, as well as a roster of all the facilitators and support team. So during the day of the event, especially, if people have questions, they know who to reach out to and where to find folks.
Well, thank you, Sam. And as you know, it takes an army to make any event successful, and your power team is the biggest part of it. Your power team should include these few key roles. I mean, there should be a lot of roles, but these are the big ones. First is the MC of the host. This is the person that's going to be your focal point and the cheerleader for the day. They're going to keep the show moving. I suggest using an engaged member of your community and have possibly more than one because it's exhausting. Next is your facilitators, which we've hit on a couple times here, and your presenters. They're super essential to the content of the day. Without them, what are you going to talk about? They're going to be able to provide a good question to ask yourself is, what will they be able to provide content-wise and engagement-wise for your attendees? And then take that question and go from there, and then you'll know exactly who to have come to your events. So knowing the difference between a facilitator and a presenter are very important. One, a facilitator helps guide your discussions among the attendees, especially when you go into breakouts, where your presenter will guide the information on the topic. Finally, moderators provide a service which can argumentally be the most important piece of an online event. They will watch the back end of the presentations, gather Q&A from the chat, coordinate break rooms, and so much more. And then finally, always remember to thank everybody who helped you. All these people, make sure they get their thanks, because without them, it wouldn't have happened. Volunteers didn't have to spend their day with you. They didn't have to help out, and they did. Make sure they feel recognized in a special way.
So one of the biggest perks of going to a conference is the ability to network and go out into the lobby and exchange business cards with people. It's kind of like the whole reason why you pay to go to it, other than all of the wonderful sessions. So you have to think about where are you going to have those people, have your attendees continue these conversations. And so obviously there's not an in-person lobby where people can physically walk out of the room, hence the map of the MU. But some spaces that you might want to consider are a Zoom virtual lobby that's just open the entire day where everyone has access to the link, Twitter prompts or posts that are pre-scheduled to encourage Twitter chats and retweets and comments, a Slack channel like the ASU IT community or the Empower 2020 presenters that set up ahead of time to foster excitement and then serve as a space for like last minute announcements or changes, like if you're running behind on your schedule. And then the ASU Events mobile app, huge shout out to Steve, has a chat feature or a chat module in it that lets people directly message each other. And there's also an opportunity for a pre or a post event email with next steps. And then even just thinking about if you're hearing this huge buzz, setting up an opportunity for people who are interested in the same topics to meet again at a later time. And then these are just some examples from the Social Embeddedness Conference, pre-conference, during the conference, and then after the conference. And so these are also artifacts now that I can reference and have taken screenshots of as part of the reporting that I did post-conference, and then also just as part of like my secretly selfish like fellowship portfolio, like this happened.
So next is all about how you take that content, all the wonderful content and all the artifacts that come out of your event, and how you kind of package them up in sort of a portfolio, as Christina referenced. What are you going to share after your event? What kind of fairy dust are you going to sprinkle? So here's just one quick example. I know we're low on time, so please feel free to go to the link below. Really similar to what Christina's example was for our recent ShapingEDU on conference. There was a ton of ideas, tweets, Google Docs, all kinds of assets. And what we did was we put it all together in a single communique that embedded the tweets, photos, and attendee perspectives that tied back to the overall community mission with clear calls to action. We disseminated via email in our Slack community. And what it did was the people that actually participated were able to share it with their colleagues, with other stakeholders to let them know, this is what we collectively accomplished together. And this is the direction this community is going based on my voice as a contribution. Something else, what do you do with all those recordings, right? All these breakouts are being recorded today. All of Empower is being recorded. The beautiful thing about events happening online is you get so many built-in artifacts and assets. And so if you don't already have a YouTube channel, you may want to think about creating a YouTube channel. You could segment content by playlists. You could have a playlist for the entire event. You could have a playlist by theme or track. The possibilities are endless, but what it does is it automatically expands your attendee pool to not just be people that were part of the live experience, but it invites people into your community long after. So some final content distribution tips. Make sure to disperse the information in slide form. It's going to allow time for people to review. So we'll be sharing a link to this deck here shortly in the chat for you to keep it. And make sure to be following up in a timely manner. Our final tip before we hopefully do, I don't know, Erin, you could tell us if we have time for breakout still. But the final tip is all about making it your own. If it doesn't feel authentic to you, it's probably not going to feel authentic to your audience. You still have to find a way to be you in all of this, especially if you're experimenting. So one way I found to amuse myself, for example, is I've leaned into my true self with some virtual backgrounds. So this is me in a Taylor Swift music video, dressed as a unicorn, why not? And then one of my colleagues sent me this photo. I actually wasn't posing for this picture. This was just me at a media relations call, my virtual background eating grilled cheese, and it was okay. I showed up as me. Other examples?
Share something personal. So this is my real dog. Her name is Dowie. And earlier, as soon as this session was starting, she and my golden retriever were in the other room just like wrestling and being super loud. And I was going to feel really nervous if they were going to continue doing that in the middle of the presentation. But now they are super tired and laying on the ground. And so it's real life. And like, I'm sure lots of y'all have distractions going on in your lives, and just like acknowledging those and like giving each other grace. You know, we're all working from home now. Just being able to share something personal, it's gonna just allow people to connect more with you.
Okay. I will ask Erin and Seth, our power team here. Do we have time for breakouts?
I think we could do maybe 7 minutes, and that would still give everyone a little time for a break in between.
Awesome. That sounds great to me. So I know we hit you with a lot of tips and tricks, but now it's time to have some discussions amongst yourselves. So we've come up with a couple questions for you to have in your breakout groups, and I'll put the link to a note sharing document in the chat here momentarily. But we're really looking you to kind of take some lessons that you may have learned today and think about how you would retool an existing face-to-face experience. It could be an experience outside of ASU. It could be an experience that you're working on yourself. But how would you take what you learned today and retool an event? Finally, our final question to you, and you could answer them in your groups in any order you like, is what are some ways you would impart and advance culture and community in the design of online events? So the theme of Empower is the intersection of culture and innovation, which is a perfect theme for online events because events are all about community engagement, and it's a moment to bring your community together and actually advance culture. So what are some ways we can actually do that? I will put the link in the chat, and then I will ask Seth to, let's see, there's 44 of us. I think maybe 8 or 9 breakout sessions feels about right. Take a second to introduce yourselves and your groups. And then for 6 or 7 minutes, maybe identify someone or a couple of you in your groups that wants to take some notes in the Google Doc for what you come up with. Sound good? All right, great. So the link is links.asu.edu/reverse it. I will write the link in the chat right now. Or themes that they want to share from their breakout groups, any kind of overall lessons learned or reactions? Well, I'm gonna pick on David Davis here because he was in breakout 1, and he was thinking, and I was in a group that was really focused also a lot on students and learners. Deanna was joining me from Ed Plus, and we're really talking about how an event isn't necessarily just a place to consume something and to learn something, but a place to do something and actually carry out an action together. So in academia, that would mean not just having students listen to something, but have them actually do something all together in a session like this. So Erin or Christina, any kind of parting words before we dismiss ourselves for the day and move on?
Other than make sure you go back to the site to check out session 2 and join us all at the end of the day in plenary.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for spending some time with us today. Please keep in touch, the ASU IT community channel. I'm going to post our document, our artifact, the notes that we took in the ASU IT community now. So, please feel free to keep conversations going in that thread. And we'll see you all at the next mini session. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Sam. Have a good day.
You too.